Hummingbird Acrylic Painting Tutorial Time-Lapse by HotPinkZebraPaper. So in this video, I'm going to be going over just a couple of the basics on background, middle ground, and foreground. And if you're somebody who has studied art in their time, you're going to know that that's one of the basic things that you learn when you are working on art. And it's something that I know that I sometimes just kind of forget about, and not many of my paintings actually have multiple planes like that. So I thought I would just go over some of my thoughts on it while I showed you this painting. So I'm going to start with the background, which is that very farthest area away, which is going to be, in this style, the most blurry and soft looking and distorted, and that's how we're determining the distance. So that's one way to do it. And that's the way that I'm doing it today. So as you can see, I've just got a dark purple or a medium purple. I'm going to be blending in some white and some pink as well as some darker purple. Just in these streaks, just really soft colors, no harsh lines at all. Everything is really wet as I'm doing this. So this was 100% wet paint. So now as I'm going to do the middle ground, that's that area that if you have a camera, it's not in focus, but you can still see the shapes of it. So if you have like I use a DSLR to take reference photos, which I just got that. So it's pretty exciting for me because I feel like I can now take reference photos. Yay. But it's the way that the camera sees it, depending on how the focus is set. So this area, I mean, you can see the shapes, but they're not detailed. They're still kind of soft and fluffy looking, kind of like clouds. So then I'm just going to do 2 layers of these blossoms. So the first one was lighter and the second one's a little bit darker. And so this is one way to do that foreground, middle ground, background, because the top layer, the foreground, is going to be very, very detailed in focus and easy to see, and it's what your eye is going to immediately go to. Another way to do that is by the darkness of color. So depending on the style of painting and depending on how your light is, sometimes it's going to look, things that are farther away are going to appear darker. Sometimes they're going to appear later. And a lot of times, if you have a reference photo, just look at that and see how that looks and determine how the distance is achieved with that. That's going to be the easiest way to do that and to decide. Like, this is pretty much based off of a reference photo that I got this painting. There are things that I changed in it. I never keep a reference photo exact. I like to switch things up. But for the most part, you do kind of go with that, and you can determine a style that way. And the way that I normally do foreground, middle ground, background is by changing. Okay, so I don't normally do this because normally my paintings are like a solid color background with a focus object. That's usually my style. For this one though, this is probably the way I typically do this, and I have done that kind of varying degrees of focus before. In my Okapi painting that I did, and I also did one before I started this channel, a painting that was some snails and cherries. That was that style. But another way to do it, and this was a painting I did a long time ago, is with that color. And this was an underwater painting. So for the seafloor, the farther back and farther away from the viewer you got, the more blue, like the rocks and the stuff in the ocean appeared. So they kind of eventually just sort of disappeared, which is another way. So you can either do it by color or you can do it by focus. So that is the ways that you can really do that foreground, middle ground, and background and have distinct areas. So as I am talking over what I am painting here, as you can see, I painted, this is going to be a single, there's only going to be one blossom or stem of flowers in the painting that's in focus, that's in the foreground. And so this is that painting, or this is that stem of flowers. I don't know, I have no idea what kind of flower these are that I was painting. When I found this photo, I was actually looking up Hummingbird photos, where I find my reference photos in, it's a royalty-free website that has pictures that you can use. And I found this one, and I absolutely loved it. I love the purples. Purple's probably my favorite color. I say probably because that changes probably daily. And I loved it, but I have no idea what kind of flower they were. There was no information on the photo, so I don't know what they are. But I liked them, so I decided I would go with them. If you know, definitely give me a note in the comment section below. I'd really like to know what it is exactly that I'm painting. That'd be fantastic. But these flowers, they started out light at the top, a little bit on the whiter side, and then they got darker and darker as they go down. And then for the hummingbird himself, I'm going to start him out with a layer of dark blue paint. So I'm just going to base out his body with that, as well as his wing. And one quick thing I want to say back about those flowers is that I talked right over this part, but when I got close to the area where his beak was, I painted the one that he's got his beak in, just so that I had that one in the exact right spot, so I wouldn't all of a sudden run out of room. And then I filled in the gap between that one and then the one that I had painted previously so that it all flowed correctly. So now for my little hummingbirdie, I did his beak with shades of gray, so gray, white, and black, and then I'm going to start doing all the little feathers on his body. And so I wanted him to really stand out and be the colors, colors that stood out against that purple. And so that is going to be some really, really bright green, as well as a couple bits of blue in there, which aren't going to show up as well against the purple, but still, you can see them really nice and really bright colors. My favorite color combination probably in general is purple and green. I love that. It's kind of a weird color combination, but it's like my all-time favorite. So that is also coming into play here, that I just love those colors. So I've got, and for doing his feathers, I didn't paint each individual flower exactly. I laid down some paint and I blended them together so I had the planes of color correctly. And then I just took my brush and made little swooping motions, like the texture of the feathers, and it'll cut through the layers of wet paint and create that nice feather texture without really doing too much. It's a quick, easy method that I really like to do. And now I'm going to be painting some wing feathers, and those flight feathers are painted incorrectly, and you will see in a moment. I will fix that. And so then I also painted the green feathers that are on his shoulder, and here's the other wing there, and you'll see right there I'm painting. I'm like, wait a second, what am I doing? That was wrong. And I just fixed it. The feathers were going in the completely wrong direction, which happens. I have a nephew who is 15. Yeah, he's 15. Sorry, I just had to think about it. I'm like, wait a second. Yeah, no, he's 15. And he was watching me paint one day, which is a privilege that not many have, because I really don't like people watching me paint. When I'm painting at the time, it's a pet peeve of mine, but I have a couple nephews that I let. So my nephew was watching me paint, and he was just, calmly watching me, not really saying anything. And then he said, "What happens when you make a mistake?" And I looked, I'm like, what do you mean what happens when I make a mistake? Well, he said, all your paintings are perfect. I'm thinking, no, they're not. But I just let him go with it. And he said, what happens if you make a mistake? Or don't you ever make a mistake? And I looked at him and said, Cody, which is his name. I said, yeah, I make mistakes all the time. What are you talking about? What happens if I make a mistake? You just paint over it. And he looked at me kind of, he's like, what do you mean paint over? I'm like, you just start over. You just paint over it. I'm like, it's fine. You make mistakes constantly. You can't expect yourself not to. And he's artsy like me, but he's a little shyer, I guess. And if he's watching this, he's probably going to be hating me right now. And so it's really important to me that, I could have deleted that mistake out of there and just not shown it, but they happen. It happens all the time. And like I said, you can't expect yourself not to make mistakes. And that's actually part of the enjoyment, is making mistakes and being able to fix them. Because if you do something flawlessly from the first time, it's not nearly as proud a moment as when you realize there's a mistake and you have the opportunity to fix it, and you do. That is really when some of the magic happens. So as I'm babbling on, he's got feathers. I've highlighted his feathers with some white. I've added his eye with white, and I'm just going to keep on painting, add a couple little more highlights of green, a little bit lower on his body because I thought there was a too harsh of a line there from the light side and his dark tummy, and that is it. So I hope that maybe this helped you out some way. I don't know how exactly, because you never know what I say that some people think is helpful. So I hope you thought this was helpful, and please check out my Facebook and Instagram for more art, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.